Hey, everybody.
Bellagio. The Bellagio, huh, Vito? Nice.
Awesome. So let me get set up and get started.
Hi, Dan.
Stephen, I'm going to start the recording and you can start. Oh, wait. You're on mute.
Thanks, Vito. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Sally. Hey, team. This is our third Zoom class, Family Affair. The previous two, we had talked about some additional solutions and value that we bring to our buyers in the form of sewer scope and air quality mold test. And this week, we thought we'd kind of go over what exactly to expect in a home inspection. Everybody has the opportunity to utilize whatever services and providers that they wish. And so Vito, being a certified master inspector through InterNACHI, has both been certified through InterNACHI as well as passed his state certification. State of Florida does have certain standards that they require. So Vito is going to take the opportunity today to be able to answer some questions around what exactly should you expect at a minimum of a home inspection, and then what are some additional above and beyond type things that Rock Solid or whomever it may be can do to help you and your buyers. So Vito, having said that, I think it's an opportunity for us to kind of share that due to some inquiries, demand, and what the market has, that we have developed another level of home inspection that Vito will be talking about today. And so that's kind of for Rock Solid, that's our basic, really designed for your real estate investor who's going to come in and do some changes to the home, doesn't necessarily have a preference to know if the dishwasher works, if the oven and the microwave work, because they're going to do some replacement when they remodel anyways. So no reason to necessarily test all of those. For the seller, they've lived in the home, they know whether the dishwasher works or not, so there's no reason to necessarily test that. And then maybe also for property management. Somebody has some rental properties and they are looking for somebody to come in on an annual or semi-annual basis, or if somebody's moving out of the property, they want somebody to come in and kind of take a look and just give them a quick, basic, bare bones, take a look at the property for me, let me know how it is, and let's move forward. And then you always have our Rock Solid home inspections, which take it a little bit above and beyond. We'll have a chart here up soon that'll show you all the different levels of how a normal Rock Solid home inspection is done. And then our premium packages, which do include, as I mentioned earlier, the sewer scope and the air quality mold, as well as some other benefits when a buyer or agent utilizes either one of our packages. So that kind of lays out a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. Vito is going to, again, take you through from an idea of what are the standards of practice, what actually does need to be done in a home inspection, and then again, kind of share with you what those steps and what that process looks like as we go through a home inspection for Rock Solid home inspections. Deanne is with us, Dawn is with us, and if you have anything to add in the chat room, please do. Deanne will let Vito know that there's a couple questions out there, and share with him just some of those as we go through. And anything else that I missed, Deanne?
Um, don't think so.
All right. So Deanna, as our moderator, if something comes up, she'll let Vito know. We've kind of gotten used to this over the last couple of weeks. We've done a couple dry runs ourselves to make sure that we're delivering and making the best use of everybody's time. So Vito, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. First thing I'm going to do, everyone, is go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to give you the benefit of not having to stare at my mug. So let's start with sharing the screen. And the first thing I want to do is talk about what exactly is involved in a home inspection. If any of you have used us before, you know that you're going to get a pretty detailed and thorough inspection. Oftentimes it can have 200 pictures and all kinds of different things, not just defects, but minor stuff. We test all the appliances, all the outlets, run the plumbing for 30 minutes. We're including free infrared scans and everything else. But you might be surprised to know that that's actually far in excess of what's defined by the scope of a standard home inspection. And I pulled this, I titled it strictly for investors in the move out, but it is word for word InterNACHI standards of practice. So real quick, a home inspection is defined as a non-invasive visual examination of the accessible areas of a residential property. It's based on observations made, and it will not reveal every issue. The report is only going to include those material defects that were observed by your inspector on the date of the inspection. So material defect just means it's going to have a significant impact on the property. So technically, according to the standards of practice, believe it or not, there is no such thing as a miss. A miss is simply a customer service issue, even though we both know that's not necessarily the customer's perception. It's by definition, it has to be both observed and deemed material by your inspector. That leaves so much on the shoulders of your inspector that it's critical that you find someone that you trust, that someone who's willing to work with you. And there are a ton of limitations. This is here, all the things that home inspectors are really not required to do. I want to scan real quick for a couple of things that we do so you can see the difference. One of the key ones, number one, is the inspector's not required to use any tools. He's not required to look behind the electrical panel. Not required to talk about mold, mildew, or fungus, or any of those things. And you know, if you've worked with us, that we're looking for all of that. Home inspection is not required to evaluate appliances. It's crazy just how little the standards actually deliver to our clients. Well, you know what, we know that's not good enough. We're committed to treating every customer like family, inspecting every home like it's our own. So we usually far exceed that. There's another one, no offers of guarantees or warranties. And when we come on, and before I go into what we're actually doing and what's in the standards of what to inspect and describe, I included two things in the chat room, and you can download it, and they're both PDFs. One is this standard that we're looking at, and the other is kind of a checklist and breakdown, and we'll get to that next once we go through here. I have a feeling that this is going to generate a ton of questions, and I want them all. So please put them in the chat room. Deanna will interrupt, and we'll get to them as they come up. This should spark a lively discussion. So standards of practice, let's start with the roof. The inspector shall inspect from the ground level or the eaves. Again, we're not required to walk the roof, but we do, because it's better. We're going to inspect the roof covering materials, the gutters, the downspouts, vents, flashing skylights, chimney, and other roof penetrations, and the general structure of the roof. We're going to describe the type of roof covering materials and report in need of correction observed indications of active roof leaks. Let's talk about that. What's an observed indication of an active roof leak? Water. It means water, plain and simple. So what happens to all the inspections that we do then when it's not raining? Or, you know, so it leaves all the exposure on the client. And when we do a home inspection, we walk on the roof every time it's safe to do so. We test the roof sheathing from underneath with a moisture meter. We're looking for stains or anything else, and we're scanning all of that with a thermal camera too. Yes, it's not the same as what happens, you know, when it starts raining every day for a few months. That's going to tell a whole different story. But we are far exceeding this because, you know what, you could go to Mr. Magoo and have him do your inspection, and he can give you a 2-page report with a bunch of descriptions and maybe 1 or 2 defects, and he can hide behind these standards. And really there's nothing to do with it except come back to us like I want you to. The inspector's not required to walk on the roof, predict how long it's going to live, look at anything underground. Well, the snow and stuff is for up north, obviously. Can't be moving insulation. Don't look at the antenna satellite dishes or anything else. Perform a water test, warrant or certify the roof, or even confirm proper fastening or installation of any roof covering material. Now that I kind of agree with, and the reason is each different roof manufacturer has different installation requirements. It just wouldn't be feasible to know them all. But we are trained to recognize common defects that might require professional evaluation. But that's really it on the roof. And if you've ever seen one of our roof inspections, you know we far exceed that. Exterior, just wall covering materials, eaves, soffit, and fascia. We're only looking at a representative number of windows, but we do test all exterior doors, even at the most basic. Looking at flashing and trim and adjacent walkways and driveways, stairs, steps, stoops, ramps, porches, patios, decks, balconies, and carports, railings, guards, and handrails, vegetation, surface training, retaining walls and grading where they may adversely affect the structure due to moisture intrusion. So things like fences, other landscape features, exterior, accent lighting, things like that, none of that's part of the home inspection according to the standards. All we're concerned with is the structure itself. All we're required to describe is the type of exterior wall covering materials. And all we're required to report is in need of correction unless, of course, we see any material significant defects or things like safety issues. The balusters are those vertical rails that you'll see up a stairwell. And if they're, I guess the thinking there is if there's space too far, you know, small children could kind of squeeze between them. Wells, springs, solar panels, wind, all of that stuff, pools and spas, wastewater treatment systems, septic systems, irrigation, sprinklers, none of that is part of a home inspection. And yet, most of this we do as courtesy checks. We evaluate the pools, we evaluate the the sprinkler systems. Now it's hard to, you know, it's hard to get a gauge on a septic system, even with the sewer scope, because all we can do is look at the line. We can't get into the tank itself. But we'll at least let the customer know how the plumbing test performed and whether or not we found out that it's on a septic. But usually they know that because of you. You've already, you know, identified that through the listing.
Hey, Vito.
Yes, ma'am.
Someone is asking to add the attachments again because I guess they're not coming through. I don't know. I was able to get them, so I don't know.
Sure. Let me.
And Vito, it may have been when maybe somebody signed on, so maybe up at the top if you scroll up, but we'll definitely get them back out. And again, even if I see somebody says that it won't open, leave us your email address and we'll email them to you directly as well. We'll get them to you one way or the other for sure.
Thank you. So let's move on to basement, foundation, crawl space, and structure. Really, that includes the attic too. It's just the whole, anything structural. We're going to inspect the foundation. We really don't have basements in Florida. If there's a crawl space, we're going to inspect that, and we're going to look at structural components. We're going to describe the type of foundation and where we were able to access the crawl space. We will talk about, as in need of correction, observed indications of wood in contact with or near soil, observed indications of active water penetration, and that means, again, active water. When we do a rock solid inspection in the crawl space, it's just like in the attic. We're testing with a moisture meter. We're taking a bunch of photos to give the clients an accurate view of what's going on down there, and we're scanning it with a thermal camera. The standards of practice mandate that the inspector shall report also observed indications of possible foundation movement, such as cracking, out of square door frames, unlevel floors, and any observed cutting, notching, and boring of framing members that look like they weren't done properly. And typically what that means is if it's cut in a certain place or too much of a notch, then it's an issue. And depending on where it is, we usually take the picture and come back and check our numbers. And if it's something to worry about, we'll absolutely include that in the report. Now, the inspector is not required to enter any crawl space that's not readily accessible or where entry could cause a damage or pose a hazard. Not required to move store items or debris. And that's key. A lot of times we open the crawl space and it's full of concrete or debris or wood, storage, nails, garbage. Your inspector may say, hey, listen, that's not safe. And that's not being lazy, that's being smart. All it takes is one mistake and career day's over. So if that's the case, we'll work with you and we'll document and we'll let the seller know and whatever you need us to do. But trust your inspector. It's if they tell you something's inaccessible, it's usually for a good reason. Here's a key one. Report on the adequacy of any structural system or component. We're not engineers. We can't tell you what the soil's doing underneath. We can't tell you if something is cracked or cracking or if, something's going to be a problem in the future. But if we do the job, by the time we're done, that house is going to have told its story, and your client will have a really good idea of what to do next. I'm going to gloss over heating because we only use the heater once in a day. And I want to get through this because when we get to the checklist portion, I want you to see the difference between the bare minimum versus what we're doing and kind of talk about this new service that we're rolling out. Cooling. We're going to use the cooling system using normal operating controls. That means the thermostat. We're going to turn it on. We're going to describe where the thermostat is and the cooling method. Now, usually in Florida, it's a condenser. It's forced air. It's a split system, air handler inside and a condenser outside. And we're required to report if it did not operate and if it was inaccessible. That's it. But that doesn't help the client either. I know that we do a lot of things differently. We're running the AC for a while. We're taking temperature picks at supply and return. We're describing how the drainage system of the air handler was configured. We're describing, we're calling out damaged insulation if the AC hood lines are unsealed, rust, corrosion, damaged fins, all kinds of detail that you normally wouldn't find in just the bare bones. In plumbing, we're going to inspect the shutoff valves. We're going to look at the water heater, the energy source for the presence of the TPR valves, the Watts 210 and the seismic bracing. That's more for California than anything else. We're going to inspect the interior water supply. Remember, it's visual only, by running the water, flush the toilets, check all sinks, tubs, and showers for functional drainage. Look at the drain, waste, and vent system, and any sump pumps with accessible floats. So interestingly enough, all we're required to do is run 2 fixtures concurrently for proper pressure. You know, when we do it, we're running all the plumbing for 30 minutes to make sure there's no issues. We're going to tell you where the water supply is, whether it's public or private, where we found the water supply shutoff valve and any fuel valves. We're going to tell you where we found any observed fuel storage system and the capacity of the water heating equipment if labeled. Is it a 30-gallon, a 40-gallon, etc. We're going to report any deficiencies in the water supply, functional flow again in 2 fixtures operated simultaneously, deficiencies in the installations of hot and cold water faucets, active plumbing water leaks that were observed during the inspection, and toilets that were damaged or loose, were leaking or didn't operate in any kind of way. Active plumbing leaks. Again, if you see water, it's a leak. That's all that the standards are asking. I can tell you that when we do our plumbing inspection, again, it's moisture meters, it's running the plumbing for 30 minutes, it is using the thermal camera, it is being as thorough as possible, and at the end we're providing 90-day warranties in case there's any surprises. Because yes, there is a difference when the client moves in with a family and places the system under a daily demand. We can only do so much in a few hours. But this is important. Your inspector is not required to light any pilot lights. You can. We'll ask you if you want to, and we'll test it. That's great. But we are restricted from that. It's hard to get a real accurate view of the interior of the flues or the chimneys or any combustion air systems. So we will typically just comment on what we can see and note that we can't see everything. Water softeners are not part of a home inspection. We can't tell you if it's softening the water properly. We'll typically take the picture. If we see any leaks as we're running things, we'll let you know for sure. Water quality, we don't currently offer any water quality testing that offers its own logistics that make it kind of not feasible for us right now. We do not open up any sealed plumbing access panels. Clothes washing machines or their connections. I can tell you that if I'm in an inspection, we're running all the appliances, we're testing the washer, we at least want to see it do a cycle. Operating any valve, that's a big one. Why would your inspector possibly not want to turn on a valve if the water's off? It's simple. It's because if I do and the plumbing's not right, now it's my fault. Now I'm responsible for all the damage to the floors and everything else. And I've done it. I have done it. I've opened up, turned the water on at the city meter, and sure enough, I didn't see everything. There was a pipe that wasn't connected and it was shooting water out everywhere. And it was my fault.
Hey,
So
Vito.
Somebody spoke up?
Yeah, I noticed that both the AC as well as the water says that we are not responsible. Well, we're not responsible, but the standards of practice say that we're not responsible to test temperatures. Correct.
And that's a good point. Thank you. We take temperature picks at every fixture. We're testing the hot water and making sure we're getting plenty of pressure. We're also testing the temperature picture at the AC at supply and return, because if it's outside of that 12 degrees temperature differential, it could indicate a problem. So thank you. Excellent question. And I want you to know that when we send out the pre-inspection agreements to the clients, we do provide links to the standards of practice. So no matter what, nobody can say that they didn't know what to expect to begin with, because either they did know or they were we can demonstrate a reasonable expectation that they should have. And that protects you too. Electrical. So this was a big surprise to me. And you know what, for as long as I've been doing this, it still is, because look, let's go through this. All of this is talking about really is the service and the panel. Inspect the service drop. That's, you know, the where it comes in off the street to the mast. The overhead service conductors and attachment point. The service head goosenecks and drip loops. That's still outside the house. The service mast, conduit, and raceway. The electric meter and base. We haven't even got to the panel yet. Service entrance conductors. That is from the meter to the panel. Typically those wires that you don't see that go back through the wall and then into the panel in the garage. The main service disconnect, that's just the shutoff. Panel boards and overcurrent protection devices. All that means is the electrical panel and the breakers. Service grounding and bonding. If it's not grounded or bonded properly, it is a safety issue. A representative number of switches, lighting fixtures, and receptacles. Usually that means 1 or 2 in a room. That's it. Any receptacles observed and deemed to be arc fault circuit interrupters, that's indicated at the breaker panel. You press the button, it trips just like a GFCI, and all new construction requires it on interior living room, non-wet living areas, bedrooms, bathrooms, things like that. And I wish my phone would stop listening to me. Sorry. We're going to describe, we are going to look for the presence of smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. Not even test them. How about that? Crazy. We exceed this wherever we can. We're going to describe the main service disconnects amperage rating, if labeled, and the type of wiring observed. We're going to report, and usually that means, is it copper, is it an MBX or conduit, is it aluminum branch wiring? We're going to report, as in need of correction, deficiencies in the integrity of the service entrance conductors insulation, drip loop, and vertical clearances from grading roofs. You can't have the wires over a pool. You can't have the wires coming in off the street, you know, just 10 feet overhead if it's the front door or something like that. There are clearances, and we're looking for that. Excuse me. If the wires themselves, the insulation's all torn, they're not fitted in properly, they're too big or too small, we're going to call that out. Open knockouts. How many times have you had to get that fixed just to make a 4-point? So any unused circuit breaker panel opening, it's an open knockout. And the presence of solid conductor aluminum branch wiring. Again, we're going to note any tested receptacle in which power was not present, polarity was incorrect, the cover was not in place, the GFCIs were not properly installed or did not operate properly, evidence of arcing or excessive heat, and some more. But what the key stuff here is what they're not talking about, and that's only on a representative number of outlets, right? So what about the one that wasn't tested? Well, strictly speaking, your inspector wasn't obligated to do it. I can tell you that as long as we're not moving furniture or appliances to get at them or unplugging stuff, you have to be careful with that too. We are testing every available outlet that we can, and all GFCIs. So I just got the 10-minute mark. What I want to do is move a little quicker. And I'm just going to go through this quickly. Representative number of doors and windows. We're going to inspect floors, walls, and ceilings, stair step landings, railings, guards, handrails, garage vehicle doors, etc. We're only going to report as in need of correction improper spacing between balusters. Those are those vertical rails on the stairs again. Any photoelectric safety sensors that did not operate properly, like on the garage doors, and any window that was obviously fogged or displayed other evidence of broken seals. And
You
there
know,
was please.
you're only testing GFCIs you can access?
Well, we're only testing anything that we can access. If it's inaccessible, it's inaccessible. However, that brings up an excellent point. So what happens 6 months later and it's not working? The client says, well, you missed it. I said, no, we must not have been able to get to it. But the burden of proof's really on us, isn't it? Because standing behind the letter of something is not the same as treating someone like family. So what we do, we take room photos of every room and we include them in the report, and of the outside and of the attic and everything else, and we document visually the conditions. And if something's important and I couldn't get to it, and I couldn't get the seller on the phone, or I couldn't get the buyer on the phone, or the agent or somebody to fix it and get me access, I take a picture of it. Hey, this is inaccessible. It might be important. Let me know what you want to do. And that's how we do. We just take an extra step to take care of the client. So I know time is short, and I want to go over to we're calling it levels of inspections. What you get in our standard right there is what you and I were talking about when you get a rock solid home inspection. We are doing all of these things. Following those standards of practice, you get same-day reporting, identify major defects. Again, that word material comes to mind. We're inspecting the roof, the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC, the structure and the crawl space, but we're also identifying minor defects. We're making positive observations. Was this tested and in working order? Here's your picture. Was the hot water working okay? Here's the pictures of all the temperature gone at all the fixtures, et cetera, et cetera. We test all outlets and receptacles if it's accessible. We're testing all the windows because only a representative number of windows need to be tested. We're running the plumbing for 30 minutes to make sure there's no issues. We're doing appliances. Appliances are not required. We're testing all the appliances and running them through a cycle as long as it's safe to do so. If I see $1,000 fine china in the dishwasher, I might walk away from it, but again, we'll ask. Temperature tests, we talked about that. Using an electrical outlet on the an electrical outlet tester on the outlets. No tools are required in a home inspection. We're testing all the outlets with tools. Moisture meters, checking the pool, the fence, all the ceiling fans. Free infrared scans with every rock solid home inspections. Non-threatening walkthroughs, and then the warranties. 90-day warranties, and every inspection we do is backed by InterNACHI's Buy Your Home Back guarantee. If we miss something that we're supposed to inspect according to the standards of practice and it would have made your client not want to buy the house, InterNACHI will buy it back from them for what they paid for it, and they can walk away clean, and that's good for 90 days. We realize though, and I'm just going to say it, and I'm going to say it badly, so forgive me. I'm blue collar all day, but we're thorough, and you know what? Either sometimes a buyer doesn't need all that information, and sometimes buyers don't need all that information because they're overwhelmed. So we wanted to offer something that might help people in those situations, and for that we're rolling out a basic inspection. The basic inspection is going to be very slimmed down, no bells and whistles. It's going to follow those standards to the letter. And we're going to make it clear right up front that that's what we're doing, that's all we're doing, but it's going to be at a very competitive price. It's still going to follow the standards of practice. It's still going to have same-day reporting. We're still going to call out major defects only, and that is pertaining to the roof, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC, and the structure. And that's it. And that will effectively, it's not going to be a 3-hour inspection. It's going to be an hour and a half to 2 hours at the most. It's going to be a lot less than a standard rock solid home inspection. And it will be ideal, in my opinion, for investors, flippers, people that back in the day would have been looking for like an expanded 4-point or something. This is the inspection for them. It's even ideal for landlords when tenants move out and they want something checked before some people move in. That's what this is going to be excellent for.
Vito?
Yes, Deanne.
So with these different packages or different inspections, we have a question of what are the prices for the different inspection levels and what counties do we service?
I'm going to allow our fearless leader to handle that one.
Thanks, Vito. So our basic home inspection is going to be $250 for up to 1,500 square feet, and then $100 per 1,000 square feet after that. So again, $250 for up to 1,500. Again, this is mostly an investor, somebody looking to sell their house. You know, they don't really need us to run the appliances. They don't need us to take all of that time. So $250 and then $100 for every 1,000 square foot over. If it's a duplex, it's $100 for the second unit or third unit or how many ever additional units there are. Our standard is based off the square footage. So our average home inspection runs approximately $400. I'm going to put that number out there. I don't know the exact number because, again, some people get the 4 points and wins, and square footage depends on that. Condos, townhomes, and villas are a little bit less because there's less outside work we have to do with that. And then our premium packages, there's our comfort package that you can get either. You get all of the home inspection, as you can see with all the X's, and then you get either the air quality, mold, or the sewer scope. And then for the sleep well, you get both of those. And what counties we cover all counties around Tampa Bay, including down to Sarasota, Manatee, out to Polk County, up to Pasco, Hernando. We've done a couple up in Ocala and in the Villages. So if you need us, we're going to be there and try and support you as much as possible.
Thank you, Stephen. Before I kind of close down what I was talking about, does anyone have any technical questions, anything at all that I could answer in the couple of minutes we have left?
And I did, Vito, while we're waiting, I did see 2 individuals asked us to forward on the attachments, and I will make sure that I do that as well.
Yeah, I have that information too.
Yep. If you need anything from us, you can always email us at rocksolidhomeinspection.com. office@rocksolidhomeinspection.com.
We are less than 1 minute, so I just want to take an opportunity to thank everybody.
Hey, Vito.
showing up.
Vito,
One more
real quick question.
Oh,
Question
sure.
from Jessica. At times when the property merits to be checked for defective drywall, what kind of checks would Rock Solid do to check on this? And I know we're under a minute, so Jessica, if we need to, we'll reach back out to you directly.
There's an answer for that. If by defective you mean Chinese drywall, but it's kind of a lengthy answer. I would encourage get me your email address to the office, and I'd like to respond to that directly.
Yeah, and then Sally has a question that we're going to have to respond to in an email as well with the issue with the HVAC.
I welcome all the questions, but we are getting kicked off in just a matter of seconds.